My brother said, "At least I can keep a woman satisfied after sleeping with my fiancée." My parents laughed. The next day, I pulled every dime from the family business account. 340,000. Let's see who's laughing now. Hey, Reddit? What my family did to me crossed every line imaginable. And what I did back, they're still dealing with the consequences 6 months later. I'm Ethan, 34M, and I've spent 12 years building my family's auto repair business from a struggling 2-bay garage into 5 locations across Northern California, pulling $2.3 million annually. My younger brother, Dylan, 29M, has been along for the ride. Though Redea's generous, he mostly shows up when he feels like it. Our dad started Pacific Coast Auto in 1997. Good mechanic. Terrible businessman. By 2008, the place was barely surviving. Tools getting repossessed, electricity shut off, the works. I had a full scholarship to UC Berkeley for engineering, plans for Tesla, the whole future mapped out. Then Dad had his heart attack 2 weeks before I started college. Triple bypass. Just for a year, Mom said. Just until your father gets back on his feet. That was 16 years ago. I took over at 18, knowing nothing about running business. Worked 12-hour days in the shop, took online business courses at night, figured out everything Dad never bothered with. Within 2 years, we were profitable for the first time in a decade. I expanded services, hired mechanics, opened new locations. Dylan joined at 19 after dropping out of community college. Zero work ethic. Couldn't change oil without making a mess. Couldn't diagnose anything. Pissed off customers regularly. But he had one talent, schmoozing with our parents. He'd show up to Sunday dinners with revolutionary ideas he'd seen on TikTok while I actually ran the business. The dynamic was clear. I was the workhorse. Dylan was the golden child. I owned 60% of the business. Bought out Dad's shares over 6 years. Dylan owned 15%, a gift from our parents for proving himself committed by showing up 3 days a week. Mom and Dad kept 25%. 4 years ago, I met Sarah at a charity car show. She was a social worker making $55,000, drove a 10-year-old Civic, lived modestly. She saw me as Ethan, not the responsible one, or the guy who fixes everything. Our first date was at a Vietnamese hole-in-the-wall, where we talked for 3 hours about her work with traumatized kids. My business frustrations, terrible 90s action movies. I proposed last year camping in Yosemite. Nothing fancy. She said yes before I finished asking. The family was thrilled. Mom started planning a massive 250-person wedding. Dad made jokes about grandchildren. And Dylan suddenly wanted to get to know my fiancée better. Started innocently. He'd text Sarah for advice about girls he was seeing. They'd meet for coffee to discuss relationship stuff. She thought it was sweet that my little brother was opening up. I encouraged it. Thought maybe Dylan was finally growing up. I was working. 16-hour days getting our Hayward location running. Sarah worked late too. Crisis intervention doesn't run 9 to 5. We were exhausted. Ships passing in the night, but building towards something. The wedding was planned for June. We just bought a house together in Fremont. Then I came home early one Tuesday. The house was supposed to be empty. Sarah had texted saying she was working late on a case. Teenager threatening self-harm. Needed immediate intervention. I'd left the shop at 6 p.m. instead of my usual 9 p.m. because we'd finished a big fleet job ahead of schedule. The entire brake system replacement on 12 delivery vans done in 4 days instead of 6. My guys were pumped. I gave everyone an extra $100 and decided to head home early for once. Thought I'd surprise Sarah with takeout from our favorite Thai place when she got home. I pulled into our driveway and saw Dylan's BMW parked on the street. Dark blue 3 Series he bought last year. Way more car than he could actually afford. Weird, but maybe he was in the neighborhood. Maybe he'd stopped by to see if Sarah was home. The front door was locked. I could hear music playing inside, the Spotify playlist Sarah always put on when she got home from work. This chill indie stuff she loved. I unlocked the door and walked in, calling her name. The music was coming from upstairs from our bedroom. My brain was still in innocent mode. Maybe they were looking at wedding stuff. Maybe Dylan had stopped by to help her with something and she'd come home early too. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for why my brother's car was here and music was playing in my bedroom. Then I heard it. My brother's voice saying something I'll never forget. Told you I could make you forget all about him. And Sarah laughing. Not a polite laugh, a genuine, satisfied, intimate laugh. The kind of laugh she used to give me. I stood at the bottom of those stairs feeling like someone had reached into my chest and crushed my lungs. Part of me wanted to charge up there. But another part, the part that still couldn't quite process what was happening, made me stay quiet. They didn't know I was there. The music was too loud. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Walked up those stairs, quiet as I could, and pushed open the bedroom door, already cracked open about 6 inches. There they were in the bed. Sarah and I had picked out together at IKEA, spending 2 hours in the showroom testing mattress firmness. On the sheets, we'd gotten us an engagement gift from my Aunt Linda, my brother, and my fiancée, tangled up in each other like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Dylan saw me first. For a split second, he looked shocked. Then, and I'll never forget this, hesmirked. This little half smile like he'd won something Sarah scrambled to cover herself, started crying immediately. Ethan, I can explain. Explain what? My voice sounded weird, too calm. Like I was talking to a customer about their car, instead of watching my entire life implode. Explain why my brother's in our bed. Explain why you lied about working late. Dylan, the absolute balls on this kid, just sat there against the headboard looking smug. Didn't even try to cover up or look ashamed. Come on, man. Don't make this into some big dramatic thing. Some big dramatic thing. I felt something crack inside me. You're sleeping with my fiancée in the bed I paid for. And he shrugged. Actually shrugged. Not my fault you couldn't keep her satisfied. At least I can keep a woman happy. I lunged for him. Would have beaten him unconscious right there if Sarah hadn't gotten between with screaming. Dylan scrambled out of bed naked, grabbed his clothes from the floor, and practically ran past me down the stairs. I followed him. Sarah was behind me, wrapped in our bedsheet, sobbing and begging me to calm down and let her explain. Dylan made it to his car. I made it to his. I expected him to just drive off. Instead, he rolled down his window and delivered the kill shot. You know the best part? This isn't the first time. Been going on for 6 months. She didn't tell you. Sarah's sobbing it louder behind me. That was all the confirmation I needed. 6 months? Half a year of lying tummy face. Planning our wedding while sleeping with my brother. All those late-night work emergencies. And coffee meetings to help Dylan with his relationship problems. I went back inside, locked her out, and called the one person I trusted, my buddy Mike from the Marine Corps Reserves, who'd become our business attorney after law school. Woke him up at 10 p.m. with a simple message. I need to pull all my assets out of the family business tonight. He tried toddling me to sleep on it, make decisions when I wasn't emotional. Standard lawyer advice. I told him what had happened. There was a long pause then. I'll have the paperwork ready in an hour. Come to my office. Sarah spent the night somewhere else. I didn't ask where. Didn't care. Dylan's car was gone from Thess Street. I sat in my living room, surrounded by boxes of wedding planning materials, seating charts, centerpiece samples, menu options, and mentally cataloged everything I knew about our business finances. See, being the person who actually ran Pacific Coast Auto meant I had access to everything. Every account, every password, every vendor relationship, every client contact. I'd built the entire infrastructure myself. The accounting system, the customer database, the vendor accounts, the commercial contracts, all of it ran through me. The business checking account had $340,000 in it. We just finished our best quarter ever. That money was supposed to cover payroll for 40 employees, vendor payments for parts and equipment, and operational costs for the next 60 days. It was our operating capital sitting there, accumulating because I'd been conservative about expansion, wanting to build up reserves. Under our operating agreement, the one I'd carefully drafted with Mike's help when I bought out Dad's shares, I had full discretionary authority over business finances as managing partner. I could move money between accounts, make purchases, pay vendors, basically anything except dissolve the business entirely or sell major assets. By midnight, I had the paperwork drawn up. By 2 a.m., I'd transferred every penny of that $340,000 into a personal account I'd opened that night at a different bank. Walked into a Chase branch at 10 a.m. the next morning and opened a new business account. Transferred the money there, left no trace in our business records except a note. Withdrawn by managing partner. By 6:00 a.m., I drafted my resignation as managing partner of Pacific Coast Auto, effective immediately. I also suspended all vendor accounts pending review. Locked everyone out of our management software by changing the master password and changed every password on every system, email, accounting, scheduling, customer database, everything. Then I went to the flagship Oakland location, the one I'd spent 12 years building from that struggling two-bay garage, and waited for my family to show up. Dad arrived first around 7:30 a.m. He was technically retired, but still kept an office at the Oakland shop. Came in for coffee to chat with the old-timer mechanics, who remembered him from the early days to feel relevant. He saw me sitting in the office and smiled. "You're here early. Everything okay?" "No, Dad. Everything's not okay." I told him what I'd walked in on, watched his face go from confused to horrified to weirdly defensive. "Now, son, I'm sure there's an explanation. The explanation is that my brother's been sleeping with my fiancée for 6 months. And when I caught them yesterday, he told me it was my fault for not satisfying her." Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. That's bad. But you know how Dylan is. He makes poor decisions sometimes. He's young. He'll grow out of it. You can't just what? I got a notification about the business account. My phone dinged at 2 a.m. Did you really move all our operating capital? My operating capital? The money I earned running this business? Well, Dylan showed up whenever he felt like it. You can't do that. We have payroll on Friday. We have vendor payments due. We've got that big parts order coming in that's already paid for. Then I guess Dylan better figure out how to run the business since he's so talented and makes such good decisions. Mom arrived around 8 a.m. with Dylan in tow. The kid had clearly called them last night. Spun some story. They walked in like they were staging an intervention, all serious faces and unified front. "Ethan, we need to talk about this situation." Mom started using her "I'm the reasonable parent" voice. "Which situation? The one where your son betrayed me in the worst possible way? Or the one where I took back my money from a business I built?" Dylan had the nerve to look annoyed instead of ashamed. "Dude, you can't just steal from the business because you're mad at me." "Steal? I built this business from nothing. You've been along for the ride collecting paychecks for showing up 3 days a week. We're equal partners. You own 15%. I own 60%. We are not equal. We've never been equal." Dad tried his reasonable voice, the one he used to use when I was a kid, and he wanted to avoid actual conflict. "Son, you're angry. You have every right to be upset. What Dylan did was wrong." "Was it, though?" Dylan cut in, and I saw something flash in his eyes. "Pride, maybe. Because last I checked, if someone's fiancée is sleeping with someone else, maybe the problem isn't the other guy. Maybe she was unhappy with what she was getting at home." Mom gasped. "Dylan, that's not helpful right now." "But Dad, and this is what broke me." Dad almost smiled just for a second, but I saw it. Like Dylan had made a good point that he agreed with, but couldn't say out loud. "You think this is funny?" I asked him. "No, of course not. But Dylan has a point. If Sarah was unhappy," Ryan sneered at me, "you can't kick us out. We're part owners of the business." "Of the business, not the building. I own the buildings, all 5 of them. Bought them personally over the years to protect the business from liability. Check the deeds, if you don't believe me." The color drained from Dad's face. He'd never paid attention to that kind of detail. That was always Ethan's paperwork stuff that he didn't need to worry about. Mom tried a different approach, her voice getting soft and manipulative. "Honey, I know you're hurt, but you're talking about destroying everything your father built." "Everything I built. Dad ran this place into the ground. I saved it. I expanded it. I made this business worth something. And you're all standing here defending the person who betrayed me because what? He's the baby. He's your favorite." "It's not about favorites," Dad said, but his voice was weak. "It's always been about favorites. I worked myself to death for this family. Gave up college, gave up Berkeley. Gave up any kind of normal life. Built this business while Dylan partied his way through community college. And quit after 2 semesters, and the one thing I had that was mine. You're defending the person who took it from me." Dylan's phone buzzed. He looked at it and actually smirked again. "That's hilarious." "What?" "Sarah just texted me. Said, you locked her out of the house and she needs her stuff." Something in me snapped. The casual way he said it, like this was all just agame. "Tell her to get a lawyer. She's not getting shit until we settle this legally." "Dude, that's her house too." "No, it's my house. It's in my name. She moved in after I bought it. Legally, she's a tenant, and I'm evicting her for cause." Mike had been very clear on that point during our 2 a.m. conversation. California tenant law was on my side. Mom started crying. "You're being cruel to that poor girl." "I'm being cruel. Your son destroyed my life, and you're worried about Sarah's living situation." The day got worse from there. Our employees started arriving around 8:30. They could tell something was seriously wrong. The owners all in the office, raised voices carrying through the thin walls. The tension you could cut with a knife. I called a meeting right there in the shop bay. All the mechanics and service advisors gathered around. Told everyone the truth. "I'm stepping down as managing partner effective immediately. Dylan will be taking over operations. I've transferred my equity to a separate account pending dissolution of our partnership agreement. Anyone who wants to leave, I'll write recommendations and won't contest unemployment. Anyone who wants to stay, good luck." I watched the faces of mechanics who'd worked with me for over a decade process this information. These were guys I'd hired personally, trained, promoted. They knew Dylan. They knew exactly what kind of manager he'd be. 3 of my best techs quit on the spot. Tommy, who'd been with us 9 years. Carlos, 8 years. Even Mike, who'd been Ed's original hire back in 2003. They just took off their uniforms, handed them to me, and walked out. 2 more asked for recommendations. The service manager, a guy named David, who I'd promoted from Lube Tech 3 years ago, said he'd stick around for 2 weeks to train his replacement. Then he was out. Dylan went pale watching this. "Now, you can't poach our employees. I'm not poaching anyone. I'm letting them make informed decisions about their careers. You're in charge now. Show them what kind of leader you are." By noon, the business phone was ringing off the hook. Vendors wanting to know why their accounts were suspended. Customers calling about scheduled appointments that were in the system, but now no one could access. One of our commercial accounts, a fleet contract worth $200,000 annually for a food delivery service, called asking why their direct contact, me, was no longer answering his cell phone. Dylan tried to handle the calls. Watching him scramble was almost satisfying. He didn't know vendor account numbers. Didn't understand our pricing structure. Couldn't explain why scheduled appointments weren't showing up in the system. Almost satisfying, but mostly just sad. Dad pulled me aside around 1 p.m., his face gray and exhausted. Please just put the money back. We can work through this as a family. Last night, you laughed at what Dylan said. You actually smiled when he blamed me for this. I didn't. He stopped, realizing I'd caught him. I was uncomfortable. That's just how I react sometimes when I don't know what to say. You weren't uncomfortable. You agreed with him. Your favorite son can do no wrong, even when he's sleeping with my fiancée and mocking me about it. That's not fair. We love you both equally. You know what's not fair? Working 70-hour weeks for 12 years while watching you give Dylan credit for my accomplishments. Showing up? That's not fair. The real explosion came that evening at 6 p.m. The whole family gathered at my parents' house in Oakland Hills without inviting me. I found out because Mike got a call from their attorney at 5:30 p.m., some guy named Richard Kowalski, threatening legal action for my misappropriation of business funds and breach of fiduciary duty. Drove over there uninvited. Walked into my childhood home to find them all in the living room with Kowalski. This guy in a cheap Men's Warehouse suit who introduced himself and immediately tried to establish dominance. Mr. Brooks, he started, pulling out a folder of documents. You've engaged in serious financial misconduct. I'm the managing partner with full discretionary authority over business finances. Everything I did was legal under our operating agreement. He glanced at his notes, looking uncertain. Clearly, they hadn't actually shown him the full operating agreement, just told him their version of events. Mom jumped in with her emotional appeal. You're destroying your father's legacy over a mistake. Dylan made a mistake. I am Dad's legacy. I'm the only reason there's anything left to destroy. Pacific Coast Auto would have died in 2010 if I hadn't taken over. Dylan, sitting on the couch like this was all some big inconvenience instead of a crisis he'd created, decided to pipe up, whatever, man. Keep the money if it makes you feel better. We don't need you. I can run this business fine without your uptight micromanaging shit. We'll probably do even better without you breathing down everyone's neck, I laughed. Couldn't help it. You can't even handle customer phone calls without making them angry. You think you're going to manage 5 locations, 40 employees, and millions in revenue? I'm better with people than you are. You're too rigid, too focused on the details. I see the big picture. You slept with my fiancée. She came on to me first. Sarah was apparently there too, hiding in the kitchen. Now she came out. Mascara streaked, looking like death warmed over. That's not true. You pursued me, Dylan. Dylan turned on her, his face twisting. Are you seriously going to... You told me Ethan didn't appreciate me, that he was married to his work. You said you'd treat me better. Show me what it was like to be with someone who made time for me. And I did treat you better. For 6 months, you seemed pretty happy with the arrangement. You used me to get back at your brother. You used me because you were bored and wanted attention. This was getting interesting. I almost wanted to grab popcorn. Dad finally found his voice over there arguing. Both of you stop. This is family business. We need to handle this internally. No, I said. This is exactly what needs to happen. Everyone gets to see exactly who Dylan is, who all of you are. Mom was crying harder now. That theatrical crying she did when she wanted sympathy. How did we get here? How did our family fall apart like this? It fell apart when you decided one son was worth more than the other. When you let Dylan coast through life while I did all the work. When you sided with him after he betrayed me in the worst possible way a brother can. Kowalski cleared his throat, trying to get back to business. Perhaps we should focus on the financial matter of it. Mr. Brooks, my clients are prepared to buy out your shares at fair market value. Fair market value? What's fair market value for a business I built from nothing? He consulted his notes. We have an assessor who valued your 60% stake at approximately $800,000. I actually laughed out loud. Try again. Our annual revenue is $2.3 million with a 32% profit margin. We own equipment worth $300,000 conservatively. The real estate alone is worth $1.8 million. A legitimate business valuation would put my 60% stake somewhere north of $2 million. Probably closer to $2.5 million. The lawyer looked at his notes again, realizing they tried to lowball the shit out of me. Furthermore, I continued, I own the buildings. All 5 locations are my personal property that I purchased separately over the years. The business lease is for me at below market rates because I wanted to keep overhead low. You want to buy me out? Fine, but the new lease rate is market standard. That's about $40,000 a month across 5 locations. Current rent is $12,000 monthly total. Dad went white. You can't do that. I can. It's my property. Check the deeds. We'll move the business. Where? You have 30-day leases on all 5 locations, month to month. My choice. And even if you could find comparable spaces, you'd pay the same rate anywhere else in the Bay Area. I gave you a sweetheart deal because I thought we were family. Dylan jumped up from the couch. This is bullshit. You're trying to destroy us because you're mad about Sarah. I'm doing exactly what you'd do if the situations were reversed. The only difference is I'm actually capable of executing the plan. The meeting dissolved into shouting, Mom crying and wailing about her broken family. Dad threatening legal action he couldn't afford. Dylan calling me every name in the book. Sarah trying to apologize to everyone, which just made Dylan angrier at her. I left them there and went home to my empty house. The house Sarah and I were supposed to build a life in. It felt like a mausoleum now. That's when their reality hit me. I just nuked my entire life. My business, my family, my relationship, all gone in 24 hours. My phone buzzed. Text from JT, one of the guys I'd served with in the Marine Reserves. We'd stayed close over the years. Heard about what happened through the grapevine. I'm in Oakland visiting family. Want to get a drink? Yeah, I really did. The next 3 weeks were absolute chaos. Without me running things, Pacific Coast Auto started hemorrhaging money faster than anyone expected. Dylan tried to manage operations, but he didn't understand the systems I'd built over 12 years. He couldn't figure out how to process vendor payments without me, didn't know which mechanics were specialized in what services, and had zero relationship with our commercial clients. The fleet contract I mentioned earlier, the food delivery service with $200,000 in annual business, they canceled after Dylan couldn't match the service level I'd personally guaranteed. Their fleet manager called me directly on my cell, asked what was going on. I told him I'd left the business, but would be happy to work with him at my new venture once I got set up. He said to call him when I was ready. 2 more mechanics quit within the first week. These were senior guys who'd been with us 8 and 10 years, respectively. They didn't want to work for someone who had no idea what he was doing and couldn't answer basic questions about job procedures. The Berkeley location had a major customer complaint. Someone claimed we damaged their transmission during a routine service. Standard procedure West to pull the security footage, document everything thoroughly, check the service records, and work with our insurance company to investigate. Dylan panicked and offered them a full refund plus $5,000 cash to go away and not leave a bad review. Turns out the transmission was already damaged when they brought it in. We had the intake documentation to prove it, the diagnostic reports, everything. Dylan gave away $5,000 for absolutely nothing because he didn't know how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, I'd started getting calls. Other shop owners in the Bay Area who'd heard I was no longer with Pacific Coast Auto. Word travels fast in this industry. One guy, owner of a chain of 8 locations across the East Bay, wanted me to come in as a regional manager. The salary offer was $180,000 plus profit sharing. Another independent shop owner in San Jose wanted me as a partner. I turned them all down. Had a different plan forming in my head. See, 3 of my best mechanics who'd quit. Tommy, Carlos, and Mike. They all called me within days of leaving. Asked if I was planning to start my own shop. When I said maybe, they said they'd follow me wherever I went. That kind of loyalty. You can't buy that. That's when I realized something important. I didn't need Pacific Coast Auto. I was Pacific Coast Auto. The systems, the relationships, the reputation with customers and vendors. I'd built all of it. The name on the sign didn't matter. People worked with me, not with some business name. I spent 2 weeks putting together a comprehensive business plan. Found a perfect location in San Leandro, former Honda dealership service center with 8 bays, modern lifts, and equipment right off Interstate 880 with great visibility. The dealership had gone under during COVID and the space had been sitting empty. Rent was $8,000 monthly, but the space was worth it. Already had the infrastructure, lifts, airlines, electrical, everything. I called it Brooks Automotive Solutions. Clean, professional, no family drama attached to the name. Got a small business loan for $150,000 to cover startup costs and working capital. Used $50,000 of my own money from the $340,000 I'd pulled out. Hired my 3 former mechanics immediately at wages 20% higher than they'd been making. Poached David, our former service manager, with a 40% raise and equity stake. Brought on 2 younger techs from a competing shop who I'd been trying to hire for years. We opened 6 weeks after I walked out of Pacific Coast Auto. Word spread through the industry fast. Our grand opening was actually covered by a local business journal. Former Pacific Coast Auto executive launches competing shop. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Our old commercial clients started calling within days. Individual customers followed too. People I'd built relationships with over the years. Folks who trusted my judgment on their vehicles. They'd rather drive an extra 15 minutes to work with someone they knew than take their chances with whoever Dylan had hired to replace me. 3 months in, Brooks Automotive Solutions was doing $85,000 monthly revenue with just 1 location and 6 mechanics. Not quite Pacific Coast Auto's total numbers, but we were 1 location versus their 5. Our profit margin was 38% because I wasn't subsidizing dead weight or paying inflated rent to myself. Meanwhile, Pacific Coast Auto was actively dying. The Oakland location was barely breaking even. Berkeley had lost so many customers they had to cut staff from 6 mechanics to 3. The 3 newer locations, Hayward, Fremont, and San Jose, were costing more to operate than they brought in revenue. The overhead was killing them. Dylan tried to hire a professional manager, someone with actual automotive industry experience. Guy lasted 2 weeks, took one look at the books, realized what a disaster it was, and quit. Later told me privately that Dylan had no idea what he was doing, and the business was beyond saving without major capital infusion. Dad had to come out of retirement to try and save things. At 68 years old with a heart condition, he was back in the shop doing oil changes and brake jobs because they couldn't afford to hire experienced mechanics at competitive rates. Mom was answering phones because they'd let the receptionist go to cut costs. The real estate situation made everything worse. I'd given them formal notice on all 5 buildings. Proper written notice, 60 days to relocate or negotiate new lease terms at market rate. They couldn't afford to move 5 locations, so they had to accept my new terms. That alone cut their profit margin by more than half. 2 months in, I got a call from their business banker. Standard courtesy call to let me know they'd filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Pacific Coast Auto was officially trying to reorganize under bankruptcy court supervision. Mom called me crying that night. Your father's working himself to death. He's supposed to be retired. This stress isn't good for his heart. Then maybe Dylan should step up and actually run the business he wanted so badly. Dylan's trying his best. He doesn't have your head for this kind of thing. His best isn't good enough. It never was. You just never wanted to admit it because it would mean acknowledging you'd been wrong about him his whole life. Please, Ethan, come back. We'll give you whatever you want. You can't have full control, a bigger ownership stake. We'll buy out Dylan's shares. I don't need anything from you. I've got my own business now. It's doing great. But we're family. You chose which family member mattered when Dylan betrayed me. And Dad smiled about it. Your father didn't laugh. He smiled. Same thing. He thought Dylan had a point. That this was somehow my fault. I hung up. Sarah kept trying to reach me too. Long emails about how sorry she was, how she'd made a terrible mistake, how Dylan had manipulated her, and she saw that now, how she wanted to make things right. Go to couples therapy, rebuild trust. I didn't respond to any of it. My attorney handled everything. The house situation played out exactly like Mike predicted. Because we weren't married and the house was solely in my name, I had all the leverage. Sarah had moved in after I'd purchased it, never paid toward the mortgage or property taxes, wasn't on any of the paperwork. Legally, she was a tenant. She moved out within 30 days, forfeited any claim to the property, and signed a separation agreement that settled all financial matters. The house was mine, free and clear. The wedding was obviously canceled. We'd already paid deposits totaling about $15,000. Venue, catering, photographer, DJ, florist. I let her have the deposits for whatever she wanted. Didn't care anymore. Just wanted it over. Here's the thing nobody tells you about revenge. It's not as satisfying as movies make it seem. Yeah. Watching my family's business struggle felt good initially. Seeing Dylan fail spectacularly at the one thing I'd made look easy was vindicating. Knowing my parents were finally seeing there'll difference between us was validating in a way, but it didn't fix the hole in my chest where my family used to be. It didn't make me trust people again. It didn't erase the image burned into my brain of my brother and my fiancée in my bed, in my house, laughing about me. 6 months later, I'm doing well financially. The business is growing steadily. I've got 12 employees now across 2 locations. Opened a second shop in Fremont last month. We're on track to hit $1.2 million in revenue our first year, which is honestly incredible for a startup. The $340,000 I pulled out, I used $200,000 to start and grow Brooks Automotive. Put the other $140,000 in index funds and real estate investments. My financial advisor says I'm in better shape at 34 than most people twice my age. But I'm alone. I work 80-hour weeks because what else am I going to do? Go home to an empty house and think about what I lost. The house is perfect and quiet and feels like a museum of a life I was supposed to have. JT keeps telling me I need to start dating again. Says I can't let what happened destroy my ability to trust people. Easy for him to say. His brother didn't sleep with his fiancée. The family situation is permanent wreckage. Pacific Coast Auto emerged from bankruptcy last month with a reorganization plan that basically involves selling off the profitable Oakland location to pay creditors and closing the other 4. Dylan's working as a service advisor at a Toyota dealership now, making $45,000 a year plus commission. He's bitter. Calls me whenever he's drunk to tell me I destroyed his life. I blocked his number after the 3rd time. Dad's health deteriorated significantly. The stress triggered another cardiac episode in March. Minor, but scary enough that the finally fully retired. Mom blames me for that, says, you put the final nail in their marriage because Dad can't handle the business failure and feels like a failure as a father. Sarah's engaged again, some guy she met through her nonprofit, another social worker. Part of me wonders if she cheated on him too, or if I was the exception. Doesn't really matter. The only family member I still talk to is my Aunt Linda, Dad's sister. She reached out about 9 months ago just to tell me she thought I'd done the right thing. Said Dad and Mom had spoiled Dylan rotten his entire life, and someone needed to teach him that actions have consequences. Coming from a 65-year-old woman who'd known my dad his whole life, that meant something. Last week, Dylan showed up at my San Leandro shop. I saw his beat-up Civic in the parking lot. He'd had to sell the BMW months ago and almost had David call security, but curiosity got the better of me. He looked terrible. Thinner, older, tired, circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept well in months. Asked if we could talk in private. We sat in my office that I'd built in my building with my name on the wall and my business license framed. I fucked up, he said after a long silence. Everything. I know that now. I didn't say anything, just waited. I was jealous of you my whole life. You were the smart-one, the responsible one, the one Dad was actually proud of, even if he couldn't say it. I thought if I could take something from you, something you really cared about, it would make me feel better. Make me feel like I'd won something for once. Did it? For like 5 minutes. Then I realized I destroyed everything. The business is gone. Dad won't talk to me. Mom cries every time she sees me. And I'm working at a dealership making barely enough to cover rent on a shitty apartment. He looked around the office, taking in the framed photos of me with employees at our grand opening, the business awards we'd already won, the plans for our third location pinned to the wall. You're doing well. I'm doing what I've always done, working hard and building something. Could I? He stopped himself, swallowed hard. Never mind. Could you what? Could I work here? I know it's insane to ask. I know I don't deserve it, but I need a job, and I'm actually pretty good at sales when I try. I could be a service advisor, bring in business. No, just that. No explanation needed. I figured, just thought I'd ask. He stood up to leave. I almost let him walk out without saying anything else. Almost. Dylan, you want to know the worst part about all this? He turned back, waiting. It wasn't even the sex. It wasn't catching you with Sarah. It was what you said after. That you blamed me for it. That you couldn't just admit you did something terrible and ask for forgiveness. You had to justify it. Make it my fault. I know. I'm sorry. Your apology doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give me back the 12 years I spent building something you destroyed in 6 months. It doesn't make me trust people again. It doesn't fix my relationship with Date or make Mom stop crying or undo any of this. It's just words. He nodded slowly. You're right. I guess I just wanted you to know that I know how badly I screwed up. That I'm sorry even if it doesn't matter. It matters just not enough. He left after that. I sat alone in my office for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. The business I'd built and lost, then built again. The family that had chosen sides and would probably never heal. The life I was supposed to have that disappeared in one Tuesday afternoon. Was it worth it? Destroying everything to prove a point to get revenge, to show them exactly what I was capable of when they pushed me too far. Honestly, I still don't know. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button.